June 18th, 2025. Folks, it's Wednesday Windup. Some topics to break down. Rafael Devers no longer with Boston. He's with San Francisco. Desmond Bane no longer with Memphis. He's with Orlando. Teams making moves, a lot to talk about. And then there's the Cincinnati Bengals, who refuse to do anything. And their team and their star players, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, are the victims of a franchise that refuses to surround them with talent to try to contend with the other dominant teams in the AFC. All of that and more on this edition of Wednesday Windup. But real quick, before we get into any of it, want to shout out real quick the channel that I just started with my good friend Arif Kapoor, Out in Fairfield. Links to our social media and our YouTube are in the description. You search up at Out in Fairfield in the YouTube search bar. It should come up. We just launched our first ever episode today, so please check that out, especially if you are following my content and you do live in Connecticut. A lot of fun stuff's going to be coming on there, so subscribe, hit the notification bell, because there's going to be a lot of content coming up. You're not going to want to miss it, so please be sure to check that out whenever you do have a chance. Again, links to our YouTube and all of our social media are in the description box below. A lot to break down, little time to do it. Rafael Devers. Wow. I mean, on Father's Day, when I looked at my phone, checked my notifications, I did not expect to see Jeff Passan saying that Rafael Devers was going to San Francisco. Here's the official trade package for those who don't know the full details. Boston trading away Rafael Devers and all of his remaining salary. They're not taking on any remaining part of the contract. That's going to San Francisco. In exchange, the Giants give up Jordan Hicks, who's 1-5 this season with a 6.47 ERA. Kyle Harrison, who has a 4.56 ERA. And prospects James Tibbs, their fourth best prospect, San Francisco, and Jose Bello. All of that's going to Boston, though that's not that much, considering it's two current players at the MLB level who are definitely below average, to say the least, and have had disappointing campaigns in 2025. And then prospects who you really just don't know what that future holds. Boston literally just traded away one of the best players in Major League Baseball in a year where they were supposed to be a World Series contender, in a year where I thought they could win the American League East. Wow. Just wow. There's so much more to talk about with Boston, but I just want to touch on San Francisco for a second. Like, what a trade. This is a low-risk, high-reward deal. If you are the San Francisco Giants, it's a trade you make 10 times out of 10, especially when you're a team where, like, with San Francisco, throughout the entire season, I've seen that they've overachieved, and I'm like, is this going to continue? Or is this team not as legitimate as their record says? Because they've been one of the best teams in Major League Baseball this season. But now that they were able to trade away very little that was contributing to that winning factor, and instead get on a 28-year-old champion and silver slugger in the middle of his prime for, again, very little, they got that extra bat, and now they are 100% contenders. And look, the risk involved is that, say he gets injured or say things go downhill, now you all of a sudden have to take on all that salary. I think it's $250 million remaining. But I do not think that's going to be the case, considering Rafael Devers is given no reason for dysfunction. And we're going to talk about Boston and everything and what happened in that situation. I don't think that's just on him. What I do know, though, is that he has walked more than any player in Major League Baseball this year with 56 walks. He was a very patient player. He's got on base at above a 400 on base percentage, OPS above 900, OPS plus of 153, which is a career high for the moment for a player that's been in MVP talks. It's been an all-star. It's been an all-MLB player, that type of guy. And is batting .274 this season. He's got 19 doubles, 15 homers, and 59 RBIs. And that guy was just traded for two low-average pitchers and two not that high-level prospects. Look, Boston, I understand that there was tension between Rafael Devers and the Red Sox, which, to be honest, kind of from the outside looking in with Boston, I don't think I realized how heated those tensions really did get until we kind of saw the aftermath, which was the trade. Look, I understand Devers could have been much more reasonable about the whole positioning thing. Look, they ask him to play third base, and then they ask him to play DH, and they ask him to play first base, and third base. It's like a whole mess going on in Boston, and Rafael Devers isn't happy, and he doesn't just want to play DH. He wants to play third base. Now, the irony is that when Matt Chapman is healthy for San Francisco, he's not going to be playing third base anyways. He's going to be in the DH spot, so we'll see what happens between him and San Francisco. I don't expect anything will be crazy, because I think Boston could have handled it better as well, because, look, Boston has a history in their franchise of trading away their superstar talents that have helped them win championships, that have contributed to winning baseball in Boston. And when I say they have a track record, I really mean just really over this past decade, half decade. Mookie Betts, you do not re-sign him. You let him go to Los Angeles. Mookie Betts has become a World Series champion, is still one of the best players in Major League Baseball. Multi-time World Series champion, I may say, without Boston. Then we look at a guy like Xander Bogaerts, who was the best player on this team for many years after Mookie Betts left. You don't re-sign him. He goes to San Diego. Now, it does look like they made a good decision there because Bogarts has fallen off. He's not that same contributor in San Diego, as he was in Boston. But still, you don't re-sign him. The fan base gets mad. And then finally, you sign Rafael Devers. And you say, he's the face of our franchise. He's going to be the future. And just a few years into the deal, he's gone. You have to be more reasonable here. When you give a player a $300+ million contract, you are committing long-term. The best way I could describe this as a metaphor for people who are kind of on the outside looking in of this situation is think of this as a marriage. And Devers and Boston were married. But in a relationship where so much is at stake, if you get into one fight about one particular thing, go to therapy. Don't immediately file for divorce in such ugly fashion. And that is exactly what Boston did with Rafael Devers. Per Jeff Passan, Devers was not even shipped around much before the trade. The main reason why the return wasn't significant. This is exactly like the Luka Doncic trade in the NBA to Los Angeles mid-season. It came out of nowhere, wasn't really near the trade deadline, and one of the best players in the entire league for a contender was traded away for very little of his value. 1 first-round pick, Luka Doncic, when we've seen a guy like Desmond Bane or Mikal Bridges go for control of 5, and we're going to talk about that later. But this is very similar, this Rafael Devers trade, to what we saw in the Luka Doncic deal, where you have a star player, a little bit of tension, and instead of trying to get the maximum value, you just trade them away. Now, going back to the marriage metaphor, if you are going to get divorced with someone rich, at least ask for millions of dollars in return. Don't be struggling to pay bills after the divorce, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen here with Boston. Now, I want to make this very clear. The Boston Red Sox could still very easily make the playoffs this year. The rotation is very solid. They've had some unfortunate circumstances not go their way, right? I think they're 9-17 in one-run games. Like, yes, that there is a clutch factor to that, but I think there is a luck factor as well that hasn't gone their way. But yet they are constantly in these close battles, showing that they are a competitive baseball team. And when they traded Rafael Devers, they were half a game out of the wild card. I think as we speak right now, they are in a wild card spot. So this team could very well make the playoffs this season. They have a great rotation, and they already have a ton of talent. But long term, when this deal is supposed to be 10 years, long term, Boston will suffer, and they no longer have the face of the franchise. And I think that is the most it's baffling, guys. I'm just as shocked now, a few days later, as I'm sure all of you listening and everyone was, because again, this was their franchise guy, and I at least thought, okay, like the Luka Doncic trade, if you're going to trade the guy, which no one ever thought they would, at least trade him for something really great, and they didn't get that much in return, and I can understand the anger from Red Sox fans 1,000%. And Devers is going to do great things in San Francisco, and I really do think, not to state the obvious, but yes, Boston made a terrible mistake in trading Rafael Devers, and they will suffer in the years to come. Maybe not this year, but in the years to come. Speaking of trades, over in the National Basketball Association, Desmond Bane traded to Orlando kind of out of nowhere, too, as we're in the midst of the NBA Finals and this, that, and the other thing. We're not going to get into the NBA Finals today. We've gotten into that in a few different episodes. I'll put the link to that right now as we are speaking currently on the video. But in the NBA offseason, as we're in the midst of the NBA Finals, Desmond Bane gets traded to Orlando, just like we did with Rafael Devers. If you're not familiar with the package, here's the deal. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, the number 16 overall pick in this year's draft, a 2026 first-round pick, a 2028 first-round pick, a 2030 first-round pick, and a 2029 top 2 protected swap is going to Memphis, from Orlando to Memphis, and in exchange, Orlando is getting Desmond Bane, who's one of the best 3-and-D players in the entire NBA. At first, I thought this trade, it seemed like a haul. I thought it was definitely a win for the Grizzlies and maybe a win for the Magic, depending on it. At first, this did seem like, wow, that is a lot. But I truly do think that's just the asking price now in the NBA. Mikal Bridges got control of 6 first-round picks when he was traded in the New York Knicks last year. Mikal Bridges is a number 3 option. Desmond Bane is a number 3 option as well. He'll be playing behind Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, just in terms of who's going to be taking the offensive workload and who the leaders are going to be in that locker room in terms of the best players. Desmond Bane's a number 3 option, and Mikal Bridges is a number 3 option. Both of them went for control of 6. Mikal Bridges went for 6, control of 6 first-round picks. Bane went for 5. This is just the asking price in today's NBA, which makes me really think, wow, what is someone going to get in exchange for Kevin Durant? And what is someone going to get in exchange for Giannis Antetokounmpo if those 2 guys are traded this offseason, or a Devin Booker or a Trae Young or some of these guys, because those are better players than Desmond Bane and Mikal Bridges. So watch out for the NBA trade market as a whole. more thinking about it, I don't think Orlando gave up that much. You gave up a mid-first round pick, number 16 overall. Yes, you can find some talent there, but how valuable is that going to be for Orlando compared to getting their hands on Desmond Bane, who has contributed to winning basketball as a 3-and-D player, never causes drama, and we'll talk about all the great things Desmond Bane does in a minute. The 2026 first-round pick, if Washington finishes as a bottom 8 team in the NBA next year, they have the swap rights with Phoenix. Right now, Memphis is getting the worst swap rates on that first round pick from Phoenix. And a lot of people are thinking is valuable, but it's really not, because assuming Washington's going to be very bad next season, they still control the swap rights. And so that's not that as valuable of a pick as people are saying. Then you have two way in the future first round picks when Orlando is good, and a projected swap that is protected, where Memphis will probably be worse than Orlando at that time, as they probably won't have their core players, and Orlando will have Desmond Bane, Paolo Banchero, and Franz Wagner all under contract. So they're really not giving up that much. I think NBA draft picks are overvalued, and I think that's why you're seeing so many go for these players. Has it gone too crazy? I think it has. But instead of any of those assets, which I don't think would have really opened the window for a championship as much as trading for Desmond Bane, instead of those assets, Orlando was getting one of the best three-point shooters in the entire NBA with competent defense to add alongside Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Orlando is a great basketball team. They have the top two options. They have the depth. I think they still could add a point guard. I think that could be something they could try to look for. I mean, this team's still not perfect. They were a 7th seed this year, but they already had one of the NBA's best defenses. They had their top two guys. Their problem was simply just consistent offensive production, and especially from three. They were the worst three-point shooting team in the NBA last season, and they still made the playoffs. And once again, that came into play when they shot 25% from three in the first round in their series loss to Boston. Just in general, in the last regular season, only 2 teams scored less points per game, and they still made the playoffs. Now you're adding a great offensive player. This team is much more well-rounded. They could be much more consistent offensively. So I love the trade. As for Memphis, they're just now stuck, and I don't think they know what to do. They're simply panicking. This was a team that was about to have it all. You have a point guard who was developing in John Morant, a great one. Jaren Jackson Jr., who's a defensive player of the year type guy, a guy who can lead the league in blocks, one of the best defenders in the NBA. And instead of capitalizing on that window, they blew it. 2022, they were a great team, 2 seed. 2023, great team, 2 seed. Both of those years, you can't make it to the conference finals. And then you have the injury year last year. John Morant was out, suspension, injury, all of that. Last season was just kind of a bust. This season, you're a top 5 seed. You're at a point you're as high as number 2. You fire your head coach Taylor Jenkins. You panic, and then now you're trading away your star player, and you don't know what to do. And now with the new NBA CBA, not only do they not have the assets to get a player in replace of Desmond Bane, but I don't even think they can, just with the whole, they're going to be too expensive of a team once John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. are both under contract. Or you say, fine, you're not doing that route and you're trading John Triple J. And unless Triple J is extended, a team might not want to give up that much value for an expiring contract this coming season. And how much value does a point guard who can't shoot the ball and has issues off the court, how valuable is that in 2025 for an NBA team? So the Grizzlies are stuck. They panicked. They had a championship window. I was really high on this team for years, and they wasted that championship window because they panicked. They absolutely panicked. And now, as I kind of thought for a few days and thought about this trade more, Orlando is the clear winner from the deal, because Memphis is lost, and Orlando now has a direction. And those first-round picks that they gave away, and those 2 guys, KCP and Clemente, were not a part of that direction. They were not going to play a fundamental part in a championship-winning team that Orlando is trying to build. Desmond Bane can. And now you have Desmond Bane, you have Franz Wagner, you have Paolo Banchero, and now you're the Grizzlies. You traded away one of your top guys. You have picks that won't be that valuable. And you either got to decide, do we trade away 2 guys who don't have as high value as they could have had if we traded them a few years ago, or try to just run with this team because you can't really add much more, and once again get eliminated in the first round to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're stuck while Orlando was trying to chase a championship. 100% a better deal for Orlando. If I had to grade it, I hate grading trades because you obviously got to look into it more. I'd probably give Memphis a C and Orlando an A. At first, I thought it was kind of going to be the other way around, but the more I look into this trade, the more I look into the value of the picks, 100% Orlando was the biggest winner from the deal. Now, we're talking about teams making these drastic decisions. The Cincinnati Bengals do not make any decisions with their franchise. They just decide to sit there and not do anything and just completely waste an era where they have two of the best players in the National Football League. They have one of the game's best quarterbacks and one of the game's best wide receivers. That alone should push you into the playoffs. Ask Miami. That alone, you should be able to say, all right, we'll get into the playoffs. Maybe we got to do more to figure things out after that. But just like always, the Cincinnati Bengals are lost. And this is not a new thing. This has been a pattern for a very, very long time. While they're one of the worst franchises in NFL history. This team is wasting an opportunity to contend with probably two future Hall of Famers. These are two of the most talented players of the 21st century, in my opinion. You have a guy like Jamar Chase, who's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. You have a guy like Joe Burrow, who's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. And clearly one of those revolutionary franchise-type guys who's already made a Super Bowl. But at that time, the Bengals had a much better defense. And that was kind of the key, is Joe Burrow was able to throw 3 interceptions in the divisional round against Tennessee and still win because he had a defense that had his back. Even with a terrible offensive line that made them lose in the Super Bowl, they were able to get there because they had a great quarterback and receiver and a great defense. And then it was, okay, add to the O-line. They tried to do that. It didn't work. They didn't really try. The offensive line has really been terrible for a long time now. And the defense has gotten significantly worse. They've gotten more expensive paying their top guys, and they don't know how to build through the draft. What an absolute disaster. Now, I want to talk about Shamar Stewart, who, when we had Matt Miller on the show, it was great to have him on, ESPN draft analyst. He knows these college guys better than anyone out there. And he could tell you, he said that Shamar Stewart should really not go in the middle of the first round. He was not high on him because oftentimes we see these guys come out of college. I go Dafe Owe from Penn State as an example. And you see him go a few years ago. And you see him have like 5 sacks in a season. And you're like, all right, that's going to be hard to translate to the NFL level. We'll see what happens. How about when you spend 3 years at an SEC school and you put together a combined 4.5 sacks in the 3 seasons? That's right, 1.5 sacks in each of his 3 seasons. That was for Shamar Stewart. That is who the Bengals decided to target. And they were like, yeah, guys, that's our guy. That's our future pass rusher. Well, actually, it might even not be because, ladies and gentlemen, not only did they draft a guy and probably not a great value in the first round, but the guy's not that good. Like, he's not that good, and now you can't even sign him. Yikes. Yes, folks, I didn't think this was that hard. I thought you just sign a player, and there's a contract ready for a rookie, and that's that. Like, it's a rookie contract. How hard could this be? They can't agree with their 17th overall pick, I think it was, on a contract agreement. I mean, how terrible is that? How embarrassing is that across the board? It's a rookie deal. This shouldn't be that hard. He's not attending OTAs. And oh yeah, Trey Hendrickson, he's not attending OTAs either. He was their only consistent defensive playmaker last year, Defensive Player of the Year finalist, led the NFL in sacks, one of the best pass rushers in the league. The answer? Yeah, don't extend him. Do not extend him. That's their answer? Are you kidding me? Your defense already last year was one of the worst in the NFL. The offense is one of the best. They could contend with any offense in the National Football League. But their defense was so suffocatingly terrible that it didn't matter. And they missed the playoffs anyway. And now, again, this team is doing nothing to help their defense. If anything, they're getting worse. Because their draft pick is supposed to add to their defense. They're not signing him, and they're not extending Trey Hendrickson because they're afraid they're going to get too expensive. And oh yeah, that offensive line that I've been talking about, they're not great either. Per Warren Sharp, this is the Bengals' offensive line ranking in terms of pass block win rate since 2021. 2021, they made a Super Bowl that year, 30th in pass block win rate. 2022, 30th in pass block win rate. 2023, 27th in pass block win rate. And how dare I say last season, 32nd among 32 teams in pass block win rate. The only offensive line in history to rank 25th or worse in 4 consecutive seasons, let alone 27th or worse in 4 consecutive seasons. And then they blow leads in the fourth quarter. I mean, it's so sad that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I honestly feel bad. I'm a Ravens fan. I feel bad for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase because they're two of the most talented players in the NFL. They should be contending for Super Bowls every single season, and yet they never are. Because their management just never finds a way to add talent around them. I mean, this is like the Matt Stafford, Calvin Johnson, Megatron situation on steroids. I mean, even they could have some level of consistency, but the Lions didn't really add much alongside them either, and they kind of wasted that era. And now, once again, you're looking at the Bengals and they're wasting this era too. And this could go down as one of the most wasted eras in NFL history, with a quarterback and a wide receiver that are both going to go down as all-time greats and a supporting cast around them that leaves a lot to be desired. And once again, how can I trust the Cincinnati Bengals just based off two players? They'll probably win 8 or 9 games this season because they have two of the best players in the world. It shouldn't be that hard to build at least a competent team around them so they can make the playoffs. But once again, folks, get used to it. The Bengals find ways to blow very good situations to win, whether that's during the season or whether that's in the offseason. And a perfect example of it is what we have seen thus far in this 2025 offseason. Folks, Rafael to San Fran, Desmond Bane to Orlando, Cincinnati Bengals can't sign a first-round pick. A lot's happening, and we didn't even get to the NBA Finals or the fact that the Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup. Congratulations to Florida. A lot more content coming up, even with the NBA draft coming up as well, here on Chase's Sports News. You're not going to want to miss any of it. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this edition of Wednesday Windup. We appreciate you taking the time, try to get this by a little quick, and then, we'll have an NBA mock draft coming up, some more Wiz Talk with Chase coming up, and a new series starting Friday. You're not going to want to miss that. So, subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and yes, please check Out In Fairfield, especially if you do live in Connecticut. Links to the social media pages for them and their YouTube are in the description. Signing off, I'm Chase Coburn saying so long from Wednesday Windup here on Chase's Sports News.